Good evening. Welcome to another candidate forum of Casa Grande Dispatch and PinalCentral. I am Donovan KRAMER, editor and co-publisher. This evening we have three different programs. The first is Legislative District 16 candidates. That will be followed by a section about 6:30 for Casa Grande Union High School and about 7:30 Casa Grande Elementary School District. In our first section with Legislative District 16, we have the Senate and House candidates. They're all here. We have on your left the Democratic candidate for Senate, Taylor Kerby. Next, the Republican candidate and incumbent Senator T.J. Shope. We have three candidates for House seats. This is for two House seats. There are two Republican candidates and one Democrat. We have in the center Rob Hudelson, Republican candidate. Next, Teresa Martinez, Republican candidate and incumbent. And then Keith Seaman, the only Democratic candidate. Our first question will start out on the end with Mr. Taylor Kerby. What can the state do about its water future?
Very good. I'm Taylor Kerby, and it's my pleasure to be here. One of the chief motivating factors that brought me into this campaign and into this work are my two daughters. I want to make sure that we have a community that is prosperous, that is thriving for them, and what is foundational to that is ensuring our resources are protected. Let me say this first and foremost. I've grown up in Arizona my whole life. And I think every year, it seems I've seen on the news that we are in the middle of an unprecedented drought. Every year, the drought becomes more and more unprecedented. We have now reached a point where we actually are in an unprecedented drought. We are, without question, in a water crisis. The first thing I want to say is this. This is an issue that should not have been a surprise to anyone. The legislature has slept on this issue for far too long, and now we are left here trying to play catch up. What can we do moving forward? We need to ensure our groundwater is protected. We need to be more fierce about ensuring that our rainwater can be collected and that it's taken care of. What we need to do, though, first and foremost, is take this problem seriously and act now in a way that the legislature, up until this point, has chosen not to.
Mr. Shope.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer, and thank you for everyone for tuning in tonight on Facebook Live with PinalCentral. It's been an honor to represent you in the state Senate for the last several years, or for the last 2 years, and the state House prior to that for the last several years. In that time, we have done many things and taken a very serious look at water issues, so much so that in the most recent budget that was passed this past June, we allocated $1 billion going forward to water mitigation, drought mitigation measures in the state of Arizona. Part of that will be groundwater mitigation. Part of that will obviously be looking at our allocation at the Colorado River. It's an issue that I have taken very seriously in my time at the legislature, and as the vice chairman of the Senate Committee on Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources, we look at it on a weekly basis, if not daily, of what we're doing. So much so, in fact, that I'll be in Nevada in the coming weeks as a part of the Council of State Governments for the Western region, discussing the ideas that we have for improving our status in drought mitigation and our water resources. My friends, Arizona has taken many steps in this field. There's a reason why today we use the same amount of water as we did back in the early 1950s, with an immense amount more of population in this state. We're going to continue to treat it seriously. We're going to treat it as a precious resource that it is. And I look forward to speaking with my colleagues from the other basin states when I'm in Nevada in the coming weeks to discuss how we can make sure that Arizona is not the only state in the basin taking the hits. It's time for California to step up to the plate as well.
Mr. Hudelson, same question.
Thank you, Mr. KRAMER, for having this. What an opportunity. Thank you guys for being able to come. Thank you for tuning in. I certainly would reiterate what TJ just said, because this is my first go-around at the legislature. And the one thing that seems to be an agreement across the board between Democrat and Republican is everyone knows there's a water issue. Everyone takes it very seriously. That's one of the first topics that seems to come up. And I agree as far as some of the things that I've been able to talk to these folks who have been doing this water situation for a long time, looking at the many different aspects and avenues. One of the issues that comes up readily is how California has not been doing the same thing that Arizona has. They have not been conserving like we have. There's a disparate difference between where we're at, where they're at, and that needs to be sought through and really equalized. We need to spread that burden out.
Ms. Martinez.
Thank you, Donovan, and the KRAMER family and the Casa Grande Dispatch for having this forum, and thank you for everyone who showed up. I know it's going to be a robust conversation. Water is the most precious that we have, resources that we have. So much so that the state of Arizona invested $1 billion this past session so that we could not only talk about water conservation, which is historic. We have invested a lot of money with water conservation, which I think is important. Using water that we have efficiently and smart so that we can continue our agriculture as well as manufacturing and developing. When it comes to working with the other states, there's no doubt in my mind that Arizona is going to take the lead in making sure that we create right water policy that affects not only the state of Arizona, but really the whole southern portion of the United States. Water is going to be the lifeblood of our community. I'm very happy about the super WIFA that has come through. They're going to be talking about proper financing and ideas, talking about the desalinization plant down in Mexico that they may or may not do. I know that they're looking at that, as well as pipelines, taking that flood water from the Mississippi and maybe taking all that extra water that's too much over there for places that we are here. I know it is a bipartisan issue. Both sides of the aisle are committed to working on that. I most of all. Thank you.
Mr. Seaman.
Again, thank you for this opportunity to talk about the issues. I'm concerned about water. I've taken it upon myself to learn as much as I can. Matter of fact, I had a breakfast meeting with the Southern Arizona Water Users Association today find out what Southern Arizona doing about it, because one of our constituencies, the Avra Valley Picture Rocks water company, is in that. And I wanted to find out what are they doing. We all know that we lost 21% of our capacity from the Colorado River, which is the most of any of those tier states, which is over, I think, 500,000 acre feet. Pinal County especially, you probably know that. I'm going to name drop here. You all know Nancy Kaywood. Nancy's been on television, on news several times, talking about her issue with the water, lack of water. She's not alone. There's a lot of people who can't do their farming anymore, because Pinal County and Yuma County are one of the most agriculturally rich counties in the state, and we're having issues. I'm glad to see that there's partnerships. Everybody's interested in water now, and I'm glad to see that Mr. Shope is going to attend Nevada, because that's what we need to do. We need to get together with Nevada, Utah, the top tier and the lower tier states, to find out what can we do about water, because especially in Arizona, we're building industry. Industry is coming to Pinal County, and we need to make sure they have enough water to build whatever they're going to build, because water is economy. If we don't have water, then we don't have the job, we don't have the industry. So water is very important. It's important that we all get together and see what we can do to prevent the lack of water.
For our next question, first to Mr. Shope. How do you feel about the state budget and taxes?
Thank you, Donovan. Look, we have had one of the most successful years that we've ever had here in the state of Arizona, and it comes on the heels of some of the most successful years that we have ever had in the state of Arizona. There's a reason that we have had the budget surpluses that we've had. There's a reason that we've been able to make the kind of investments, whether it's the aforementioned water issue that we just discussed, or record-breaking transportation infrastructure investments, including the bill that I sponsored to widen I-10 between Phoenix and Phoenix and Casa Grande, excuse me. The reason for that is because we have set Arizona up as an economic powerhouse. We have allowed our businesses to thrive here in the state of Arizona, and dare I say it, we did not shut completely down during the COVID crisis. We allowed for proper measures to be given and for businesses to continue operating. That has set us apart, especially in the western United States, along with Utah and Idaho, to be ready for the influx in economic development. We have things like Lucid. We have things like Nikola Motors, who I met with today, and Owens Corning opening back up in Eloy. The lithium recycling plant that was just announced yesterday will have 100+ jobs in Eloy. The list goes on and on and on. The economic setting for this state has never been better. We're going to continue moving forward. And the good news is we're not done yet. We just announced today that all of the benchmarks have been reached to allow for the largest tax cut in income tax history in the state of Arizona to take effect quickly in this year. So we are on the precipice of even more in the state, and I look forward to continuing that effort going forward.
Mr. Hudelson.
I love it when TJ talks about tax cuts. I love tax cuts. Limited government means we're going to have less bureaucracy, and you want to do what you can to make sure you don't grow the budget, but rather keep it or shrink it. It would be nice to continue in that vein and do all that we can not to increase bureaucracy, increase all these areas. I think the I-10, outstanding. That was obvious. I mean, it's still obvious to everybody that drives on the I-10. It's needful, and I'm thankful for some of the things that we have passed. That I have seen them pass this past year. I would love to work with that. I'm looking forward to that. Things like Pinal County's growing, I think, at 3 times the rate of the nation. I mean, it's just huge. So we're going to have to look at ways that we can lay down the infrastructure for the incoming businesses. I understand that. We want to look through the eyes of limited government and not try to not allow the budget to grow too much.
Ms. Martinez.
So we did have a wonderful session. We not only passed the biggest tax relief in the state, in histories, in years to come, but we also passed the flat tax, which is really going to help working families right now at a time of inflation. Right now, inflation is an all-time high thanks to the Biden administration. And people and hardworking families are having to decide between a gallon of milk and a gallon of gas. It was important, these tax cuts and this tax relief are important for hardworking families so that they can keep every dollar that they've earned so hard in their pocket. And I think ultimately that's what it's about, making sure that the folks have more of their money rather than having it go more to the government to fund systems that may or may not work. We have to be smart and strategic. We have to look at things that need to be funded and make sure that they're adequately funded so that we have enough surplus so that we can have great infrastructure projects like the I-10, $400 million to widen the I-10. And I know that TJ and I fought very, very hard in the last session to get that done for you. And I know moving forward, we are also going to continue to work even harder for the 347 because that road needs to be widened too. And I'm looking forward to a very prosperous Arizona. Thank you.
Mr. Seaman.
No one likes to pay taxes, of course, but there are needs in Arizona, and they've got to be met. There was what is a $5 billion surplus. That money could have been maybe used on some of these projects. And I appreciate the legislature giving over $1 billion to the schools. That brings us from 48 in the state to 45, a little bit better, but it wasn't enough. Maybe we could have been more of the surpluses. At the same time, they have taken some of the tax money and given it to universal vouchers. but I think we need to, again, nobody likes taxes, but let's figure out what needs to be done. Use the tax money on that. Try not to raise tax as much as you can, but there are things that we may need to spend on, to infrastructure that Arizona and the people of Pinal County and our district need done. So we need to watch out what's going on and then make sure we can do those projects.
Mr. Kerby.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Mr. Seaman that it's wonderful to see we end the year with a $5 billion surplus. I also agree with Mr. Seaman that there is not a person that enjoys paying taxes. And I think that it is wise to make sure that our budget is prudent and that we are spending only the money that we have. Luckily, we have a $5 billion surplus. As a father, when I am budgeting for my household, I do everything I can to make sure that I am saving money. This is basic household budgeting. This is what we all do. But before I save the money, I have to pay my bills. I can't blow off my electric bill because I want to save more money. Our education system, as Mr. Seaman said, currently ranks 45th in the nation. My friends, that's inexcusable. I have 2 little girls that are going to attend Arizona schools. I know that you have kids that are going to attend Arizona schools. We closed up this legislative session with a $5 billion surplus. We could have invested $1 billion into our education system and still had 4/5 of that budget to hold over to next year. I agree with Teresa that there are too many families in this state struggling. That's why I'm particularly troubled that in a moment in which we are all struggling, the legislature saw fit to pass a universal voucher bill that took $1 billion away from our education system, from our charter and our public schools. No one likes paying taxes. We also need to make sure we're paying the bills. And when it comes to paying the bills, we can do a little bit better for our kids and their schools.
Thank you. Our next question goes first to Mr. Hudelson. How do you feel about Arizona's criminal laws?
Great question. The criminal laws, and I know that's up for debate. Do we adjust them? Do we change them? And people are talking all about. Right now, I think we've got going forth, the criminal law system has a good, I think in the 70s, it started in the 70s, and I talked to, who was the name of the man that really set up the system or was directly involved? I don't know. I talked to him. I really like the way they implemented the system of criminal laws that we have. I wouldn't tweak it. I wouldn't want to mess with it very much. I think it's good the way it's going. I know California is letting criminals out of prison because they can't afford to keep them. And let's face it, one of the concerns of everyone right now is the violence in the streets. It has been shown, this is statistically proven, that when you take criminals off of the streets, the crime rate goes down. That's the statistics behind it. And our crime rates have gone down because they have done just that. I wouldn't tweak it.
Ms. Martinez.
As a single mom, crime is one of my main concerns. I can say that in Casa Grande, there was a time where it was just a little small town, and we felt safe. Not too long ago, we had a family murdered. 4 people were murdered in Casa Grande. And then the time before that, we had 2 little girls the night after prom killed, double homicide. Crime is going rampant because we have folks who believe that defunding the police and not supporting our blue is the right thing to do. I think, and I'm here to say that I proudly support the police. In fact, I am happy to say that I've been endorsed by Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb, as well as the Fraternal Order of Police, as state troopers, the Police Association, Sheriff Daniel Rhodes, David Rhodes up in Yavapai. I back the blue. The reason I back the blue is because I want our streets safe. Those 2 little girls that were murdered the night after prom, as a mother, that breaks my heart. Why? Because there's not enough police in the streets. Because we have one party saying, defund them, they're evil, fry them up like bacon. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. Law enforcement needs to be non-partisan. We need to support our police. That is a non-partisan issue. I think if you break the law, you go to jail. Thank you.
Mr. Seaman.
Yeah. I think we need to look at the criminal laws. Yes, of course we need laws, and of course we support the police. That's their job, is to protect society. But on the 3 strikes, there are people in prison who might be in there for misdemeanor or maybe a felony, but it's just for a drug issue, be rehabilitated. The prisons are overcrowded. We need to look at that and maybe change that a little bit. To get some of those people out who have been rehabilitated or can be rehabilitated, and not. I also need to talk about the private prisons. I feel that people are being incriminated or criminalized or prison just to fill in the private prisons. We need to look at that and see what's going on there. Yes, crime is unfortunately going up everywhere, but that's why we need more police, not fewer police, and train them. I was very happy. I attended the Casa Grande council meeting the other day, where I think there were 8 or 9 new police people, can't say men, police people were introduced. So that's good. People are going through the academy. Cities are hiring what they can. But we need to look at who is in the prison, what kinds of laws did they break to get in prison, maybe tweak that a little bit.
Mr. Kerby.
I want to echo one point Keith made on the number of police officers. I agree we need more police, not less. And I want to say very clearly, very clearly, that I do not support defunding the police, period. Full stop. I have 2 kids. I want to make sure that they grow up in a neighborhood that is safe, in a neighborhood where I know that they are not going to fall victim to a violent attack. I would not vote for any bill that would defund the police. That's number 1. Number 2, I believe firmly that it is not enough to fund the police. We can't just be anti-violence. We need to ensure we are making our communities safer. And forgive me, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I appreciate Mr. Hudelson's reliance on statistics. Another statistic is that as we fund our schools, our communities become safer. Strong schools with strong extracurricular programs keep kids out of trouble and oftentimes keep kids out of crime. All this is to say, we need to fund our police. We need to also fund other measures of our community that have been shown to bring down crime. Chief among them is our schools.
Mr. Shope.
Thank you. I must say it is a little bit difficult for me to take my opponent seriously whenever he says that he doesn't support defunding the police, when in fact he continues to proclaim an endorsement from an organization which is only prerequisite is supporting defunding the police. You can go ahead and take a look at that, and we'll go ahead and have it on our social media after the debate. But the reality is this is a 2-part question here. We have a situation where rehabilitation does need to be done in our correctional facilities. We want to make sure that that is something, because 90% of the folks that are behind bars are going to be in our neighborhoods. And we want to make sure that those people who are behind bars are productive members of society, the kind of person that you will not mind and in fact embrace whenever they become your neighbor. That's one thing that I think all of us on this stage would probably want to believe in and want to make sure is funded. Secondly, as far as supporting the police, look, my endorsements every single time that I've ever run for office have included every police association that the state has that endorses candidates. I'm proud of that. I will always be proud of that. And there's never going to be a question of where I stand on supporting our law enforcement.
My next question, first to Ms. Martinez. Does Arizona have good election laws?
Does Arizona have good election laws? Well, considering that we live in Pinal County and the last election, not only did we get the wrong ballots, we got no ballots in some precincts. I think ultimately elections have really been great. We've got a great mail-in ballot system. We've got great systems where we can verify our signatures. We've got a great system set up for polls and poll watchers and poll workers that are funded. I think that Arizona's election laws are good. I do. I do think we can tweak them, and I do think we can make them better. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that mistakes can happen and do happen, and it is our job to make sure that we continue to watch to make sure everything stays on track. And that's all of us in the community. But yeah, Arizona has good election laws. I just think we need a few tweaks.
Mr. Seaman.
Ms. Martinez mentioned the problem in Pinal County. That was a human error. If a person was following the life, he had realized that we need more ballots than we got. One thing that I'm concerned about on election laws is the 100 laws, voting laws, that the legislature proposed, even to get rid of early voting. A lot of thankfully were killed or not passed, but to even get rid of early voting, to make people have even do more identification, make it harder to vote. People who live in distant parts or are elderly disabled then couldn't vote. That I think would be a better election law, but I think overall the election laws are okay. Let me be aware that was Ms. Martinez who sponsored a bill to validate fake electors to go to Washington. I think that can be considered an election denier. I won't take entire. That's not fair to Mr. Shope. But a lot of the legislatures in Phoenix took the election, tried to change it, tried to overturn it, and change the election laws. But I personally think that we have good laws if those laws are followed the way they're supposed to.
Do I get 10 seconds?
Yes.
So my opponent is going to sit here and say that I am the evil person that doesn't believe in elections, when in fact I believe that elections are good. We have a good election system. We need to tighten it. We need to tweak it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a system and making it better. Now, they're going to say, oh, you election deniers, when they themselves said the exact same thing when Hillary Clinton lost and Donald Trump won. They sat here and they talked about, oh, it was a rigged election, rigged election. I don't want to talk about elections in the past. Elections today need to be secure. We're going to tweak them. And I think it's disingenuous to sit here and attack folks on something that did or did not pass.
Mr. Kerby.
I want to say first and foremost that I wasn't with Mr. Seaman on election night, but I can say with good confidence that he did not say it was a rigged election. I can also say that Mr. Seaman was not an elected official, at least in the legislature, on election night in 2016. And it would be a very different thing if a unelected official, a person, said the election was rigged, and an elected official sowed lies about the election. Returning to the question, does Arizona have good election laws? Yeah, it does. Here's a couple things we need to do better. I am concerned about the state of our mail-in voting. I'm very concerned, actually, at the elimination of our permanent early voting list. My grandmother is first off, is a Republican. I think she's voted for every Republican since Eisenhower. And she currently is in chronic pain. She physically cannot make it to the ballot box. I want to make sure that she can continue to vote by mail. It's my belief that getting old or getting sick should not preclude you from participating in our democracy. As a state legislator, I would make it my mission to ensure that our vote by mail is protected, that our permanent early voting list is restored. And I want to echo one point that Keith made, and it's this, that elected officials have a responsibility to tell the truth. We have a responsibility to tell the truth. When an election happens and our guy loses, we have to tell the truth.
Mr. Shope.
Thank you. We have I think, very good election laws in the state of Arizona. We have made some tweaks over the last couple of years, I believe, to make them even stronger. Moving to the active early voting list will not remove anybody from the early voting list, of course, because you're active, and if you're able to vote by mail or in person in a previous two-cycle span, nothing's going to happen to you. This is one of the biggest fallacies that's been thrown around over the last couple years, and frankly, it's one that I've dispelled numerous times over that period of time. So the reality is this: if you are an active voter, and by goodness, if Donald Trump didn't get you out to vote from 2016 and 2020, you're probably not very active anymore. The reality is that you're going to be just fine. You'll continue to receive your ballot. How do I know that? Oh my goodness, my early ballot arrived in August. And guess what I did? I took it out, filled it out, went over to the drop box at the elections department there in Coolidge and put it in the box, and it was counted a few days, or at least verified a handful of days later, and then obviously counted 14 days prior to the election, and then of course the results are revealed. Those are the first results that you see at 8 p.m. on election night. It's an issue that I have worked with county recorders and county elections directors every year for the last 4 years. I have run their bill on election omnibus issues to tighten our elections, to make sure that we're making the changes that make sense to the people that actually operate our elections. Happy to have been a part of it. I look forward to doing more with them because they're a great group of people to work with.
Mr. Hudelson.
I believe there are some election laws that we just passed in this last session that were really good, and some that didn't make it to the table. The problem is I went to vote and couldn't get a ballot, and then I look at that and hear Mr. Seaman call me a guy like, or somebody like me, an election denier. You don't inspire trust in people in District 16 when they just show up and can't get a ballot for whatever reason. And I know it was human error. I understand that. But when we keep labeling people just because they have questions, just to question what's going on. I remember the first time I even thought about it. I saw a picture of how safe and secure our elections were, and here's our poll observers standing. It was like 75 feet away behind the yellow tape, and I thought to myself, how can they see a little dot on a ballot if they can't even read what kind of shoes he's wearing or something to that effect? It's a long way away. The point is, Republicans want to know that their ballot counts. Let's do whatever we can to ensure, whether we have mail-in or not, let's do whatever we can to ensure that everybody really believes my vote counted.
Our final question, first to Mr. Seaman. Does the state have the right priorities on transportation?
I think so, because I was in Tucson this morning and I saw an electric streetcar, which I thought was cute. And I think the state's doing that kind of thing. If you'll notice in Phoenix, they're expanding the light rail. The state needs to do that. I know that's not state, but they've got some state money. I think transportation is important. I attended on Sackatoon a couple of weeks ago the discussion about from the DOT on what they're going to do with I-10, and I applaud TJ for that. I know he's been working on that for a long time. You see, he was like a dog with a bone with that.
As was I, because I took that vote as well.
Okay, but he started it. But I appreciate what you did too. And so that's the kind of thing they're doing. There is a tax proposition here in Pinal County to restate the tax for transportation to fix 347 and Pinal, all these. That's what we have to do, especially as we're growing. We need to get more light rail, more buses, more conveyances for people to get around, because as more and more people come in, more people working, and I think it's one of the state's job is to create that and help cities in transportation get organized for that.
Mr. Kerby.
I think I agree. would echo what Keith just said. I think that the city's on the right track. There's obviously more we can do. If it's all right, I would like to speak to one issue. I'll be honest, when I'm knocking doors, and I knock a lot of doors in this town, I don't hear a lot of people talk about transportation. What I do hear people talk about, frequently actually, is the state of our reproductive health in the state currently. I am horrified to see that Arizona currently has an abortion ban that does not make exceptions for rape or incest. Forgive me, I know this isn't the question, but this is what I hear from voters. Voters who who in times past had perhaps voted for Republicans or voted for the right, they're concerned. I think that this is an issue actually that most of us can find common ground on. Most of us agree that there are certain circumstances, often terrible circumstances, in which a woman should be allowed to make that choice. The difference between me and my opponent is I continue to believe, that it should be the choice of the individual. He believes that it should be his choice made for you on your behalf. I want, in the time that we have remaining, to promise this district that if elected, I will do everything in my power to ensure that we have that right to choose the most personal decision, the right to make the most personal decision a person can make. I will fight to ensure that that right is restored.
Mr. Shope.
Thank you. The question was on transportation issues and where the state's priorities are. Look, I think that the state has made a very good priority list. If you ever attend, and some of these are very mundane, I understand, if you ever attend a state transportation board meeting, as we just did in Maricopa a few weeks ago, you will understand the multitudes of things and information studies that have to go into all of these issues. I will say very high on the priority list, obviously, we have a grant process that is in process that will be announced in November, dealing with the other dollars for the widening of I-10 that will complement the $400 million that the state has allocated via the last budget. Look forward to that being very positive as far as the news there, and we actually can get shovels in the ground within the next fiscal year, and that will be a tremendous thing. Now, the other thing that was mentioned earlier is State Highway 347 between Maricopa and Interstate 10. Now, I care very deeply about the fact that, yes, we have been able to attract business here to this region of the state, and I think that's fantastic. However, we are not doing everything we can to make sure that those citizens who have to travel elsewhere to their employment are able to do so in a way that gets them there safely and gets them home safely to be with their families. And that is my issue number one, priority number one. It is an issue that, regardless of the crowd that I speak to, regardless of the organization that I speak to, is the one always time that I am interrupted for applause. It's probably the only thing that I talk about that gets interrupted. So I will keep on fighting for you. I will keep on fighting to make sure that you are safe in your vehicle getting to and from where you need to be.
Mr. Hudelson.
Okay, I'm going to go for it. Since Mr. Kerby brought it up, I would like to say what a transition. Abrupt transition going from transportation to the abortion issue. It's no secret I'm pro-life. But what I want to say is you look at how it does connect to the transportation issue. You're paying exorbitant prices at the pump. 2 years ago, you could get gas for under $4 or under $2. Now, they say they've really benefited you by bringing it down from 5 to 4. Remember where we were 2 years ago? Remember where we were 2 years ago at the grocery store? How you could get eggs for half the price of what you're getting it now? I know that you are being crushed by inflation. And my point is this. The abortion issue has become the terminal issue that the Democrats are trying to use to push Republicans into the corner. It comes as a package Don't forget, it comes as a whole package, a whole worldview issue. All of that comes together. So although I am pro-life across the board. I'd like to see inflation dropped and taken care of. I'd like for you to be able to go to the gas pump at 2 years ago prices instead of today's prices. I'd like for all of us to be able to go to the grocery store and be able to afford it. When you take a one issue and think that you can separate it out apart from the whole worldview package, that's not the way it rolls out. It all comes together. It will make it more difficult for you all over.
Ms. Martinez.
So the question was about transportation, and I think that's a great story because in Pinal County you care about water and you care about roads. The I-10, $400 million. TJ and I voted, we passed it, we worked as a team to make sure that the I-10 gets widened. And I have it, ADOT, on speed dial to make sure that come November 1st, they have a plan, a strategic plan that we can roll out when shovels hit the ground. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 347, $19 million. TJ and I were able to get to secure 347. This is not pie in the sky. These are real numbers for real dollars for a real road that needs to be widened. And that has already happened. This last September 16th, I believe it was, ADOT signed an internal agreement, an intergovernment agreement with the city of Maricopa for that $19 million. So not only do we have the 347, the I-10, the 238, I can also say with me living in Casa Grande and commuting during session to Chandler, that I-10, I drove it every single day, 22 miles. And it took 2 letters, 3 videos that I sent to the governor of Arizona to talk about what do we do in the interim. You see, I want to fix the problem, and we're going to fix the problem. But what do we do in the meantime? In the meantime, you know what we do? We get commercial traffic moving over to the right for 22 lanes. We did that. TJ and I did that together. It's about keeping the government responsible, making sure that your roads are safe and secure, and to make sure that we can come in and out with safety, because safety and travel, the way we commute, is important to everyone in Pinal County.
We will move on to closing statements. Let's start this time with Mr. Seaman, and then we'll go to Ms. Martinez and go the opposite direction. 2 minutes.
Yeah, as you know, my name is Keith Seaman. I've been an educator for 40 years, and I've worked as a teacher, principal, superintendent, and currently vice president of the Coolidge School Board. And on that time, I've seen what the legislature has done with the lack of funding. I've seen class sizes rise, and it seems like they're using our children as pawns in a political game. Yes, they gave us $1 billion, but took it immediately away, universal vouchers. We need more money. Also, health care. My wife is a retired nurse who worked in rural Arizona hospitals for 30 years, and she's made me aware of the importance of health care in the rural areas. Yet still, we have people who can't afford to go to the hospital and get health care. They can't afford their drugs, their prescription drugs. This is intolerable in the state of Arizona. And of course, the vote. We can't do anything about the other two unless we have a valid, stable voting area. As I said before, this legislature put 100 and some bills, all of them didn't pass, thank God, to restrict voting, to restrict early voting. In America, the vote has always been the hinge of domestic democratic vote. So, and the water, of course, we talked about that. All the things are important to me, and when I get to the legislature, I will see that District 16, which is all Pinal County and a little bit of Tucson, will get a legislature that cares about those issues and everything else that affects our district. Thank you.
Ms. Martinez.
Thank you so much for having this debate. We greatly appreciate it. I'm Teresa Martinez. I'm a longtime resident here in Casa Grande. I was just born right up the road at the on Florence Boulevard at the Homeko Hospital. I am a single mom. I care very deeply about our children. When I taught at the Union High School, I saw how deeply drugs and crime affected our children. I saw how it is important for us to make sure that law enforcement is fully backed. Our opponents, they got an endorsement from Planned Parenthood, and that main requirement was to denounce the police. I think that's a shame. When we talk about our children, we want them to be safe, and of course we want them to be educated. I taught at Union High School. I want our children to be educated. That's why we passed $1 billion, billion with the B, to promote education. Our schools are in crisis. My nephew goes to Union High School, where one class had 77 students, biology. Our schools are in crisis. If we took away school choice, if we took away homeschooling, if we took away private schools and charters, and all those kids went into the public system, they would collapse. I don't want to crush the public system. I want to make sure that our public school systems are safe and we're able to educate. But we can't educate our children with kids that are 77 in one classroom. Transportation, water, these are all issues that we have fought for, TJ and I, and we did an outstanding job. I am proud to have been your representative. I ask for your support. I ask for your vote. If you have any questions, or if I can be of help of you in any way with any state agency, please contact my office. You can contact me via Facebook, via Twitter, via Instagram. You can call or email. I am here to help you. Thank you.
Mr. Hudelson.
I'm Rob Hudelson. I have been pastoring the church that I'm at right now, Legacy Baptist, for 16 years. And as I have watched these 16 years play out, there are two distinct worldviews that we can see right here amongst us. Two distinct worldview. One comes from a Marxist position, a viewpoint where there are the oppressor and the oppressed. That plays itself out in our education system. Having ESAs, which I think both you guys would denounce, gives the parents the right to choose. It helps them. $7,000 goes to help a parent out if they feel like having my children socially engineered, I don't want that. I want to be the one who decides what my children are taught. I want them taught the STEM. I want them taught 2 + 2 = 4. I don't want them taught how to feel. I want to make sure that the parents are in charge. It's biblically sound, it's biblically right. And not only when $7,000 goes with that child, $7,000 stays with the school. And to your point, when a child leaves, the class size drops and $7,000 is still going to that school. So parents, I want to certainly stand up for you in this endeavor. And again, gas you pay at the pump, grocery store bills, inflation, drugs coming across the border, all of these coming down from the Democratic worldview, Democratic policies that are in play right now. You will be able to choose which way we go because the differences are stark. I'm asking you to vote for Republicans because us together, we won't cancel out each other. You get 2 votes per the district, and I'm asking you to vote for Teresa and I. Thank you.
Mr. Shope.
Thank you, Donovan, and thank you for another great evening. It's always a great opportunity to come and speak at this event every 2 years, and I've enjoyed it this evening as well. I'm TJ Shope. I'm your state senator, and it's the honor and privilege of a lifetime to do so, especially for a kid who was born in Florence and grew up in Coolidge and is a third-generation business owner in Coolidge. I enjoy the work, and it has paid off in dividends, I believe, for the citizens of this district because we go to work every day, Teresa and I thus far, and hopefully Rob in the future, to go ahead and provide a better life for our constituents. Better Life includes attracting businesses, like I mentioned before, like Lucid, like Nikola, who I spoke to today, like Owens Corning in Eloy, and our battery recycling plant that was just announced yesterday in conjunction with the Arizona Commerce Authority. Those are things that are going to allow people in this region to not have to get in a car every day and drive to work. And that will allow you to spend more time with your family at home. And I think that everybody wins in that scenario. The other things that are already mentioned, the transportation infrastructure that we have brought back to this legislative district, the water infrastructure. There's a reason why our farmers and ranchers just today at the Arizona Farm and Ranch Group endorsed our campaign today for re-election, because they know that in this water war, there are going to be winners and losers, and we want to make sure that it is as equitable as possible as we go forward. And that's why I'll be the voice of this area in Nevada when we convene a council next week of the Southern Basin states. Look, you can find more information at tjshope.com. You can volunteer there. You can ask for a yard sign. Most of all, I'd appreciate your support for another term. I hope to earn your vote once more for another term as your state senator. Thank you.
Mr. Kerby.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, really quick, Keith, question for you. Are you a Marxist, sir?
I don't think so.
I'm not either. So maybe we clear that up first and foremost. Listen, it is easy it's easy to go against an opponent that you make up in your head. Let me tell you who I am. I'm Taylor Kerby. I grew up in this state. I've been in this state for 5 generations. My dad is a Republican. My grandpa's a Republican. My mother is a Democrat. We can't have Thanksgiving without forming a coalition of parties. I don't care what party you're from. And you want to know what's interesting? As I've knocked doors, I have found that most people in this district don't care either. They're willing to vote for the individual. I think our district is a little tired of this partisan back and forth. What they want is people of honor and people of conscience leading in the legislature. I want to agree really quick with Teresa on a point she made. It is absolutely inexcusable to have, 70 kids in a classroom? 77. There is a solution to that. Fund the damn schools. Fund them. This $1 billion is great. At the same time, $1 billion was taken away with universal vouchers. Let's talk just a second about how these vouchers work. Mr. Hudelson is right. It is $7,000 to someone seeking to go to a private school. That doesn't cover the cost of tuition. And the Arizona Department of Education did an audit. They found that 75% of those users were already attending private schools. In other words, it was not people that needed them. It was people that would appreciate a $7,000 check. Let me tell you this. My hope, more than anything else, is to create a community where my daughters can look forward to prosperity, and that starts in their schools where they need smaller class sizes. They need to be set up for a career that will ultimately bring them the prosperity they deserve. I am willing to show up every day to fight for my kids and your kids, and I hope more than anything else you will give me the opportunity to serve you as your next state senator. I am Taylor Kerby, and if you're willing, I'm signing up to fight for you.
Thank you to the candidates. We will take a brief intermission before we set up with the Casa Grande Union High School District Board candidates. This concludes this part of our program.